This is a Sandy Boy Productions podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to All Have Another podcast with Lindsay Henes. I'm your host, Lindsay. Thank you so much for being here today. Today you're listening to episode 362, and I'm talking with Laurie Henes. Laurie is the head women's cross country coach at NC State. Their team won the national title at the NCAA Cross Country Championships in 2021, which was a really big deal. It was the first national cross country championship from NC State. Laurie was also named the USATFCCCA National Cross Country Coach of the Year in 2021. Laurie has been with NC State for a very long time, all the way back to when she ran for NC State, where she won a national title in the 5,000 meters and set school and conference records while competing for NC State. As a graduate student, she finished 5th place at the USATF Nationals, earning herself a spot on the United States track and field team in the 10,000 meters for the 1993 World University Games. Laurie also competed in the U.S. Olympic trials in the 10,000 in 1996, and she joined Coach Geiger's coaching staff at NC State in 92 as a graduate assistant. So she's been with this team coaching since 1992. One of the coolest things about her story is she got to coach her daughter, Elly. Recently, Elly now runs for Adidas professionally, but Elly was on the NC State team under her mom as a coach, and we get to talk about that unique experience as well. We talk about the team last year who won the national title and what her legacy will look like at NC State. Very cool. You know, I love talking to coaches. I specifically love talking to women who are coaches. One of my all-time favorite episodes in this podcast is episode 268 with Marisa Powell. She's the director of track and cross country at the University of Washington. Also really loved my conversation, episode 341, with Julie Coley, who was the director of track and cross country at Georgetown University. She now works for Brooks. All three of these ladies are mothers and passionate about women in the sport. You'll hear about that in this episode with Laurie. She'll talk about what that was like raising young kids and being a coach, what that looks like now. Both of her kids are out of the house, and this was super fun. You know, I recently moved to North Carolina in Raleigh, pretty close to NC State, so it was fun to hear from the head coach here in my new town. All right, friends, if you do enjoy this podcast, share it with someone who you think might also enjoy it, and leave us a quick rating and review on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you are listening, so that potential new listeners can find us. That would just be such a great help in growing this audience. I am so grateful for you, and I really hope that you enjoy this conversation with Laurie Henes. All right. Well, today on All Have Another, we have Laurie Henes on the podcast. Welcome to the show, Laurie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Really excited to speak with you. Congratulations on winning the national championship this fall.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you guys still celebrating?
We're actually at the halftime of the men's basketball game tonight, and we were at the women's game Sunday, which is really cool. So the women on the team have taken to calling it the end of the victory tour and getting ready for indoors.
Oh, that's so exciting. You know, I recently moved to Raleigh just this past summer, so it's been really fun to follow a little bit closer now that I live in your city.
Yeah, ACC basketball is really fun. And a lot of our women actually were, multi-sport athletes in high school. So we have, particularly a lot of them played basketball. Actually, Hannah Steelman is one of our All-Americans. Her dad is a college basketball coach. And so she grew up playing basketball, and so did a couple of the other women on the team. So they were pretty excited to be honored at halftime of ACC games and that kind of thing.
Oh, that's so cool. My kids were out like sledding, it was like barely snowing, but they were like sledding down the hill the other day, our neighborhood hill. And my neighbor comes out, and I was running in and out of my house watching the marathon in Houston, live streaming it. And my neighbor comes out, and he knows I host a running podcast, and he just starts talking all about your cross country team. Oh. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually interviewing the coach in just a couple days. And so it's always funny because I meet new neighbors, and if you're not a fan of the sport, you're not going to follow my podcast, but they'll actually be interested to hear this one talking to you because the community has really been excited about this.
I was going to say they really, really have. When we do some of our long runs at American Tobacco Trail, and every time we're there, people come up, talk to me, talk to the women. And I think that's pretty cool because, it happens in a lot of other sports, but not so much in track and field and cross country. So when they're out doing a long run and people are yelling congratulations or coming over and asking to take, a picture afterwards, stuff, that's pretty cool. We go to Umstead a lot, and it doesn't happen as much there because it's a little bit
quieter.
But at Tobacco Trail, it definitely does. So, yeah, I think, this is a big running community here, and this team has definitely felt a lot of support from that, which is really cool.
So I have run both the Tobacco Trail and Umstead. I always want to say Umstead, but I know you locals say Umstead, right?
Yeah, and Schenck Forest, which is where we meet. So that's the part. That's actually part of the NC State Forestry School, and so there's a little bit of land there that's just NC State's.
Oh, cool. Well, Tobacco Trail is just a little bit far. Like, it's a drive, and so I default to Umstead, but I know that tobacco is much busier, at least from what I've seen.
It is. It's definitely a lot more crowded, and so the Saturday mornings there are a little bit tough. Our group is kind of big, and they like to run together. So, we always have to remind them to leave enough room on the trail. Hopefully we're doing that. But Umstead, that's not as big a deal. But, I mean, for us, really, the difference is just the hills. If we want a little bit flatter long run or something with some tempo in it, we'll definitely go to Tobacco because you cannot avoid the hills at Umstead.
Okay, so tell me about your team size at NC State. What's your philosophy? I've talked to different coaches who do different things. I can't remember who it was, but I know one of the coaches I've talked to at the college level that she keeps a smaller team. Another coach wants it as big as she can so that as many kids as possible can have the opportunity to run on the team. What's your strategy with that?
I would say we're kind of in the middle of that. We're not at a point where we make it, super restrictive for someone who has had a lot of success in high school to walk on if they want to. Our total roster is, probably between 18 and 20 or 21 most of the time. I feel really strongly that we want to keep it small enough that I can give enough individual attention to each athlete in the program. But we do have a large staff on the distance side here. And so obviously only three of us can actually do coaching under the NCAA rules, but we have two director of ops that are, distance-based former athletes for us and a couple volunteer assistants. And so our staff is pretty big, and I feel pretty comfortable in that low 20 range that they're getting enough attention. But, also we've had a lot of success with, runners from particularly North Carolina. We are a state school that maybe didn't run as fast in high school as some of the other athletes in the program that have really developed. And we really believe in development in general here. Whatever level you're coming in at, we want your best finish at NCAA's to be in your fourth or fifth year if you're still here. We want that development to keep happening. So we want to give that opportunity, but unfortunately we have to do it within a certain framework because we can't get I don't want it to get to a point where people don't feel like they have enough individual attention to continue to develop and compete at this level. Yeah,
I'm wondering about that as a coach, making sure that your athletes aren't like peaking when they're freshmen and whatnot. And I wonder how you handle that when you have someone coming in that's just got a huge talent and you're competing to be a national championship team. How do you make sure you're not like overdeveloping kids when they're super early on in their college career, but you want the best for the team at the same time?
Yeah, that's a definite balancing act there. And, we feel as a staff here a huge amount of responsibility to all the athletes in the program. But, particularly when you have athletes that were, massive talents in high school, and we want to be careful and nurture that for sure, and make sure that we're allowing that development even in that range. And so we do that. We hope that, particularly in cross country, we're always deep enough that we never have to have a freshman come in and make a huge impact, and that we're doing the development piece right, so that we aren't lining up. I mean, I've been here a long time. I feel like if I'm lining up 5 freshmen, I'm doing something wrong because we're your juniors and seniors. So, we hope that gives us time to allow the freshmen to develop, but certainly some of them come in at a level where they're an immediate impact. And so we just try to make sure that we're always leaving room for growth, which, most of them have had very good high school coaches that have done the same thing. So, we talk to people about their goals early on too. Some people's goals in competitive running do end at the end of college. If they want to go to med school or law school or, start a professional career right away. And I think that it's a little bit different than someone who says, like, I want to have a professional career in running. We want to make sure that we're leaving enough room for them to do things after college, that they're not maxed out mileage-wise or intensity-wise, those kinds of things. So we are try to be very careful with that. But it is hard when you have such a high-level group of women. Everybody wants to run at that level, and so everybody's saying, well, I want to do what they're doing. But, we're very adamant that, the 18 and 19-year-olds don't necessarily do the same thing that someone who's been here for 4 or 5 years and is 22 or 23 does.
It's so hard too, because at that age, I remember being in college and patience is hard. And like 1 year from now, at this stage in my life, seems like it's tomorrow. But when you're 19, it seems really far away.
And we keep telling them, like, your eligibility really is precious. Like it seems like it's taking a long time for that. They want everything right now, but we do try to make sure we don't rush anything. It's so tempting too with 3 seasons. It's hard this level when you have really high level athletes, to say you're going to be ready to go at an NCAA Cross Country championship and then an indoor championships in March and an outdoor championships in June. And then if you're really good, maybe the Olympic trials. It's tough. And I don't think you can do all 3 of those seasons for 4 or 5 years in a row at a high level. So we'll tend to back off in indoors at times, and just to be careful, because I think you're coming off an NCAA cross country season and ramping right back up in January is tough.
Yeah. So what's going on right now with the team? You guys are ramping back up.
We are. Most of our top women from NCAA Cross, we went to Boston 2 weeks later and got one of the NCAA indoor marks out of the way. So I really like that schedule. If you're super fit coming off the end of an NCAA cross country season, we don't do much in between there and the track meet in Boston. They just go, and they worked out really well this year. People ran really fast. And so they took a pretty big break after that. So we do have a few people coming off that racing, very off events this weekend, but we won't really start racing till, mid-February probably.
Okay.
And be very limited, maybe 3 indoor meets total. But if we can compete at the NCAA, obviously we want as many people to do that as possible. But we're not going to kind of fly all over the country chasing marks for an indoor season at this point.
How many is everybody that ran on the national championship team still with you guys? Like nobody's eligibility's done or graduated halfway through?
Well, half of them have graduated, but none of their eligibility is done.
Nice.
Other things COVID has done. We have a lot of it's that's a little bit challenging schedule wise, because it's not as easy to miss a graduate class. It's maybe only once a week and 3 or 4 hours. And so we've got a little bit of challenge with that scheduling wise, because we have so many athletes in grad school at this point that becomes a scheduling issue. But yes, everyone who ran in the cross country season is still here, at least through this indoor and outdoor season.
Okay. So of the women who ran in the championship race, how many are post-grad?
So let's see, 3 or 4 of them are in grad school.
Wow.
But to be fair, Kelsey Camille, who was our number 1 runner, has been here only 2.5 years. She graduated in December after 2 years in undergrad. So she has all kinds of eligibility left. She just came in with so many AP credits, and that she actually graduated in December with her undergrad. So she eventually wants to be a vet and will go to vet school, but I don't think that won't mesh with competing. So she's getting a master's degree now for the next 2.5 years here, or 2 at least.
So talk to us about building the program into what it is today, into becoming that national championship team, because I know that it's been a long process. And, just like I was saying with my neighbor, he's just in awe. He was in awe of what you've done with the program over the years, as someone who's not even a big fan of the sport of running. So clearly you've made an impact as the coach. And I'm just curious how you've built that.
So, I ran for NC State, and Coach Geiger, who is the director of the program, and he is still the director of the program here now, And so I chose NC State because we were preseason ranked #1 in the country when I was in high school. So I think, we had a couple of years in there that were, kind of down, but I think people are kind of looking at this as like this build from what we weren't very good for a year or two there, but we really had a couple down years. And honestly, I think that was kind of after I took over a little bit more of it. I think to be honest, I think when my children were younger, I probably didn't do as good of a job recruiting in some of that as I could have, because it's, there's so much travel, and it was a little bit difficult in there. And then as that's happened, I think I've been able to work with Coach Geiger, and we've been able to recruit kind of the right people again and build, the culture that we were looking for. And, we talk about this all the time, but people want to focus on the training or how good some of these athletes were in high school. And I think that all those things are extremely important, but they have a lot of fun, and they really like being together. They spend all the off season as much time together as they can. And I think that, people talk about winning being fun, and like winning the national title was extremely fun, and winning ACCs is definitely fun. But I think that, we're winning that much because we have fun. It's not just the winning part being fun. Like they really want to run for each other and be around each other and push each other and work hard together. And so I think, we've worked on developing that, but sometimes it's just you get the right leaders in the program and it just feeds off of itself. And I think that we've been very fortunate to do that. I mean, we've worked hard at trying to develop the leaders that we've had in different ways. But I think that's really been the case. That's happened the last, 6 or 7 or 8 years. And so I think that works in recruiting too, that you attract the same people, or people that's important to, when they can see that that's what you have.
Yeah, it must be a little bit challenging to balance the fun with the serious, because at points you have to be serious. But, I was just, Kira D'Amato, who just broke the American record in the marathon, as I'm sure you know, was being interviewed on the Today Show yesterday or the day before. And Hoda says, at some point you decided, I didn't want to just do this for fun anymore. It wasn't enough, the fun. And Kira says, well, it is fun. That's why I am where I am. I do run for fun. That's how I did this. And so, and I wonder about the kids that come in that were super, super good in high school, winning state championships, and how to make sure they still know how to make sure that it's fun and not just serious.
You're right. I mean, definitely you have to be serious about it, to run at this level, and the times in the NCAA are getting crazy. I mean, people are running so fast. And so, yes, you have to be serious about it. But I think what we look for and what we hope people is that people that is fun to them too. Mm-hmm. If it's not, we always say, if it's hard to lace up your shoes and you don't want to do that, this is not the place. It puts people, if it's putting you in a bad mood, or practice isn't the best part of your day, it's not a good thing. And, that's one of the things we talk about all the time. Coach Geyer's always said that, and we say that now. I want practice to be the best part of their day. It is for us. I want them looking forward to, I can't wait to get to practice and see my friends and run with my friends and do this, So we work hard at that, and not everything is, it's definitely not every day is ooh, let's go run this 10 miles today. It's so fun, but I think that it's the stuff outside of it too, that they, brunches after long runs, and, their team trips in the summer that they do together. I think that they just have a lot of fun with that. But it's that idea that running for something bigger than yourself, the team part, makes it fun. So I think the pro level is a little bit, harder. I mean, my daughter is kind of is running professionally now, and it's no matter how many teammates you have, it's still different than lining up trying to win an NCAA cross country title. You have teammates, but it's different, and it's your job. We always say this isn't your job. If you're on scholarship, we're not paying you to run. We're paying for your education, or helping offset the cost of your education, but not being paid to run. But at Kira's level or the next level, you are being paid to run. And so I think there's a difference there, and we try to make the college part of this still more about being a student athlete, the team aspect, and then deciding whether you want to do this professionally.
All right, everybody, a quick break here to thank Previnex for supporting this podcast. I love Previnex. They have vitamins, supplements, protein powder, and I believe so much in this company. They source the highest quality, clinically proven ingredients on all of their products. They take so much care in creating the products that are going to produce the best results for you. They greatly care about longevity, performance, and everyday health. And they have a new product that I am super excited about. I just started taking it last week, and that is their Immune Health Plus. Such an exciting announcement. They've been working on this product for 2+ years. I know many of you have tried the Joint Health Plus, which has worked wonders. If you haven't, check that out. It provides joint protection and relief, and they have a money-back guarantee on all their products. So if you don't see a result once you are in on the product for a full month, you can get your money back. Well, their newest product is the Immune Health Plus, and they actually started working on this before COVID was even around. I've seen the clinical data. I sat through a webinar and watched all the information about the ingredients they've put together to make this amazing product. It supports robust, healthy immune responses and primes your immune cells to spring into action and respond rapidly to various threats at the precise moment they're needed. They actually use beta-glucans. That's like the powerhouse molecule that is used in this product that bind to your immune cells. They help stimulate and unlock your cell's natural protective abilities, and they prime healthy immune responses before threats are detected. The ingredients are legit, sourced here in the United States, and I 100% believe you should go check it out. Now, if you've already saved 15% using the code ANOTHER that I have for this podcast, the code ANOTHER saves you 15%. But if you've already used that code, if you want to try out Immune Health Plus, use the code IMMUNITY15 to save 15% off Immune Health Plus for a limited time. I love hearing your testimonials. I cannot tell you how many people have messaged me on Instagram and told me the great relief they found from Joint Health Plus, how much people are loving the protein powder as well. So keep those coming in. If you try this out or you try out Joint Health and you love the product, let me know. It makes me so happy because these products are really great, and I truly believe in the company. I'm good friends with the founder now and just really believe in the work they do. They also donate vitamins to malnourished kids around the world and have seen amazing, incredible differences made in the lives of those kids. They've donated over 1.5 million bottles of their kids' vitamins, which is just cool. This is a legit company that I really stand behind. So go to Previnex.com, use the code ANOTHER for 15% off. And if you've already used that code, use the code IMMUNITY15 to save 15% off Immune Health Plus for a limited time. All right, friends. I know that was a long commercial here, advertisement, whatever you want to call it. But I'm super excited about this new product. So check it out. Okay, enjoy the rest of my conversation with Laurie. Talk about what it's been like coaching your daughter and now kind of sending her off on her way to run professionally.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience collegiately. We both say all the time it never would have worked in high school. I did not coach her at all in high school. She went to Green Hope High School here in Perry, and had Roger Collins was her high school coach, and he was amazing and is amazing. He's at Green level now. But we would have clashed quite a bit when she was in high school, and she admits that, and I admit it. But it really developed into, as a coaching relationship, something that was really cool and really special, at the end of her career here. So it is different, when she's very, very consistent. So she doesn't have very many rough days, but when she does, she'll still call. And, she had a couple this week, and, oh, Mom, I'm not sure am I really that fit? And I'm like, what does your coach say? Well, he says I really am. So, I think that it's just it's kind of fun going back to being the parent part of that and not the coach part. But it's hard now to completely separate it when, for 5 years I did do that. But I really enjoy having her work with other people that you trust, So I think I think the situation she's in, Mike Smith is coaching her, and Rachel Schneider is her main training partner, and they're just awesome people. So she's having a lot of fun, and she's really excited to race.
That has to feel pretty good as a mom to know she's in good hands. Rachel Schneider just seems like the most kind and caring and wonderful human, and older than Elly, obviously. So like just to know that she has that kind of mentor as a training partner has to feel so good.
Absolutely. I think Rachel is one of the nicest people I've ever encountered. And I know my daughter is, she just turned 23 a little bit ago. Like it's got to be a little bit, feeling like babysitting probably for some of the older pros when they bring in, it's the same thing here when you have a fifth year senior or something and you bring in an 18-year-old. One of our athletes said, I can't remember exactly what the time difference was, but she was a fifth year senior and we were bringing in the freshman, and she said there's as much difference between me and the freshman as there is between them and a seventh grader or sixth grader.
It's
and
wild to think about.
And so then that same thing happens at the pro level. You have these 22-year-olds who don't know, like, oh, I need an accountant. Oh, they're coming out of college, like figuring all this stuff, and you've got like the seasoned pro. So as a parent, it makes me feel great that she's got someone around her that can help her. That I coach that, she definitely trusts and people around her to help her navigate that for sure.
Okay. So tell us what it was like as someone who was a national champion yourself, ran for NC State, ran professionally, 6th at the Olympic trials, knowing that you had a daughter as she got older that also had a gift and could run well. Like you said, you couldn't coach her in high school, like that wouldn't have worked out. But like, how do you kind of give her your thoughts and advice and encouragement and belief, like share your belief in her that she can be great without overstepping or, if you push too much as a parent, what you're going to do is push them away. So how did you balance that?
Be interesting to see what her answer was. If she thinks it is interesting because, as a parent, people ask sometimes, can you tell right away? And like, particularly with Elly, I think it was fairly obvious fairly early that she was pretty talented. She played soccer, did all those other sports, and then like their soccer coach would take them to a turkey trot and she would run 20 minutes without doing anything in like 6th grade. And you're like, she's probably okay. But she would say, and I will admit that we did kind of not force her for sure, but really encourage her to run cross country her freshman year when she wasn't sure she wanted to, because I think sometimes all the different sports are great, for sure. And she did that, and we're big believers in that. But just trying something that that they're really good at, like trying to get them to try it and then back away. And she actually spent her freshman year at a different high school at Athens Drive where, at the time, the cross country wasn't a big deal there. There weren't a lot of people training really hard. And then we moved. We moved to a different house, and she ended up at Green Hope. And this just like, we were able to just completely step back because the team, it was exactly the kind of atmosphere we would have wanted her in. The team was trying to make it to NXN, to the national championships in high school. And there were seniors and juniors on the team that was their goal. And they were, I think she said in a podcast that she did, she's like, for the first time, I was around like girls older than me. And I was like, they like this. Like, they're really into this and they're working really hard. And so it just kind of fed off of that. And so I think that's why it ended up being that NC State was a perfect fit for her, because she really bought into the team aspect on the cross country side and, trying to win these team titles. And she went to cross country nationals by herself twice, but with the team once. And, she said the difference between that was night and day. She said, I don't want to be, she said, maybe I could be good enough to make it to NCAA's as an individual somewhere. She goes, but I don't want to be there as an individual. She's like, I will run harder and work harder and run better, with teammates that we have a common goal. So we really were able to really kind of stay out of it there. But like at NC State early was tough because, as a parent, you can see the talent, you can see what can happen. And then she wasn't nearly as serious as some other athletes at that level. And so it was a little bit frustrating at times. You need to sleep more. Mm-hmm. You need to do these things. You need to eat better. You need to, like all the things that elite athletes need to do better. She would always tell me, I'm saving that for next year, Mom. So somewhere to get better. And I'm like, eventually you're 22. Like, what are you saving this for? But yeah, I think it's probably worked for her because she does have a lot of room. Like her mileage never got super high here. she never really focused on nutrition or those things very much. And so she's actually trying to do those things. And I think because again, it is her job now. So it's more that she's like, okay, this is my job. I need to really kind of try to focus on these things. So I think she's doing that better, but it is definitely a fine line. And I think early on in her career here, we had some very, very good leaders, seniors. And so every once in a while they would kind of say, hey coach, you're being a little harder on her than you would in a situation. You probably, like, you don't know everything that we do because you're not our mom, but we kind of do the same thing. So you should back off. So. Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of hilarious, actually, that they called you out.
A little bit, yeah. Once in a while.
Oh, that's good. What about your other daughter, Jordan? What does she do?
She wants to be a teacher, and she is at App State here in North Carolina in Boone. Boone got, over a foot of snow in this last snowstorm. And she, was raised in Cary here, so she, has not seen a ton of snow. We were FaceTiming the other night, and she opened the door to her apartment and snow just started coming in. So she, we told her, we're like, you need to go, you need to have enough food in case, all these things in case you lose power, but she never lost power. So I think she really likes it. She wants to teach or maybe get into like policy administration of teaching. She's known that for a little while. And she did look at NC State, but App State, I think she liked the mountains and the whole, they were kind of founded as a teaching school, so their college of education is really cool, and she likes it there.
Did she ever run?
She ran one indoor season. We kind of talked her into just trying it, and she actually was running really pretty well. And Elly and Dominique Claremont, who's on the team, they've been roommates forever and are really good friends. They came to her indoor meet, the one she ran, and she hadn't trained much, won the slow section, I think, in 3:20, 80-second pace, but kicked and ran really well. And Elly and Dom ran over to her and gave her this big hug. And Dom, I think, said, Jordan, do you like running now? She's like, no, that was the most thing I've ever done in my life. So we're like, yeah, no, you don't have to do it. Actually, the coach wasn't Roger, but a different coach at Green Hope that year tried to motivate her by saying, you might make our 4x8, and the 4x8 goes to the state meet. And she's like, oh no, I'd have to hand a baton to someone and people would be watching and counting on me. She is not. Yeah, she does not. We always feel bad because when we finally are all together again now, a lot of the talk is about running, and so we always try really hard to have conversations that aren't about running. But she does. She came to Eugene. She got to watch Elly win the national title. She stayed for the trials. So she's into her sister running, but she's not a running fan necessarily.
What's it like with recruiting though when you're recruiting and you're recruiting your daughter to be on the team?
So, she has told this story a couple of times that she was not sure she wanted to run in college. And so, people started calling her and we said, why don't you take some visits? And she did. She visited. She actually only took an official visit to Providence. I really like Ray Tracy and that program. And so I was happy that was one of the places she chose to take a visit. And she loved it. But on her visit here, I tried to be really careful about not spending much time. Normally we have quite a few meetings with the coaching staff, and she definitely did so that she could actually have the official meeting with myself and with Coach Geiger. But she spent a lot of time with the team, and she said she never, and this made me feel kind of good too, she never realized, I try to not bring all of it home with me all the time. And so she said, I never realized that exactly what I was looking for team-wise is what was already going on at NC State. And so it was right after the visit, she didn't take any other visits then.
You mentioned earlier, those years when your kids were really little and you didn't focus on recruiting the way you do now. And I just wonder how much a barrier to the coaching at the college level motherhood can present because of that. I mean, I have little kids and I don't want to travel all the time and be away from them. That's so hard. What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, I think things are a lot better. It's not that much, it's not been that long, but I think there are lots of different ways to do it now that are a little bit more, except what we're doing right now, or people can, you can have Zoom calls. And so, and I think that people just didn't do that as much at the time. So everything seemed to be based on traveling and making a ton of calls at night. And, it's tough when kids are young, they are at daycare and then you come home and to make recruiting calls at night when you haven't seen them, it's difficult. And and I think I could have probably handled it better, looking back, and done a little bit more of that, because I do think that it probably did have a bit of an effect on the team for a few years there, where I probably wasn't doing as much as I could have been doing recruiting wise. But you make choices, and I mean, those were some of the choices I made at that time. But I think too now, like, our administration here is amazing with it. I think things have gotten so much better, where people realize the benefit of having women in high level positions working with other women, and so there are things in place to make that a little bit easier now, I think. And I think people understand it too. If you're calling and saying, hey, sorry, I'm probably not going to be able to get on the phone, come to your meet this weekend because my daughter has one. And I think that people understand for women in this profession, there's got to be some give and take, and it doesn't mean that you're not seriously recruiting those people or seriously interested in them if you don't call every Thursday night at 7. I think people understand that a little bit more.
Yeah. And, I have to think too. I mean, my husband, I think we share child care stuff 50-50 for the most part. And like, as the dad, he wouldn't want to be traveling all the time either. I don't know why it's just that's so female focused, but just like when you have a young family, whether you're the mom or the dad, I think it's hard regardless. I know that, if you're breastfeeding your babies, that's a whole nother ball game. Obviously the dad doesn't do that, but I think it's hard for moms and dads, right?
Yeah, I think so. And we had a really challenging situation with my husband ran for NC State too, so he definitely understands everything, super supportive. But his region for a portion of the time with work when our children were little was Australia, New Zealand, and Southeast Asia. So
he was traveling there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Same time I was traveling, and my parents, we didn't have family living in North Carolina, so sometimes the girls did travel with me when they were little. When Elly was, I was speaking at what was Foot Locker then, East Bay now, the high school cross country, and Elly was born in October, so that was early December, and we're on the flight, and the flight attendant is like, "Oh, she's so little. Is this her first flight?" Like, no. And I'm like, what am I doing? It was her 10th flight. Because,
10?
Well, with counting all the connections, right? Because she came to regionals with me. She came to nationals, which were in Lawrence, in Kansas that year. And so it bundled her up. But my husband came too, and we brought an extra. Coach Geiger was always so good. Like, we brought an extra athlete to help watch her at that during the NCAA championships. And so, we made it work, but it was, super challenging. He as soon as he could get out of that position, he did as well, because he didn't want to be in Thailand when he was trying to help with the kid, and I would love to say that it was 50-50, but it's definitely he's done way more than 50%. If they now need to sew something onto, they call my husband. He won he will let everyone know that he won the home ec 8th grade award, so he's very sewing, cooking, all of those things. So they call him with those things, and now I'm kind of like hurt. I'm like, I didn't even know anything was wrong. And they're like, yeah, we called Dad. It's definitely, that was, I think, another part of that time period. It was just extremely challenging with both of us traveling.
I can't imagine.
And overwhelming. And I'm just really grateful that I made it through that time period coaching, because I think what happens is a lot of, talented women or women that would be really good at this don't make it through that time. It gets a little bit overwhelming, and the travel gets overwhelming, and they're like, I can't do this. And so they get out of it. And then this is a profession that's hard to get back in if you've been, it's not impossible. And I think people can definitely still do it, but it's something that is really hard to get back into after, 8 years off or something like that. So,
I can imagine.
And so the more support people can give younger mothers in this profession, I think is amazing. And, there's a lot of coaches that will come up to me like, how did you do this? And what did you do? And, anytime, I think those of us who have made it through that can help. But I think all of the mothers in this profession that are really helpful and hopefully supportive of the young women who still want to stay in this profession and have a family.
Yeah. What can the administration do? Like, what can your colleagues do? What can happen so that you do feel supported?
Yeah, I think, being able to take a little bit of time off after, in some jobs, it's you really can do that and you can completely step away from it. It's really hard in coaching because even if you can step away from the recruiting part, you're not going to step away from working with the athletes in the program. Like, you're still going to be there for them and those kinds of things. So I think whenever they can have someone else on staff that can really help with that. So it's administration. It's mostly also, I think, probably just the staff that you're working with, who you have working with you, and them being like, Coach Geiger was great. And then our director of operations, who's still our director of operations, she has 3 kids now, and she didn't at that time, but always, she still tells stories when Elly was on the team of like helping potty train her because I was gone, and she stayed with her for 3 or 4 days and using M&Ms and all these things. And Elly said that's why she has a horrible sweet tooth, because we used M&Ms to help potty train. But having those types of people around you, just, and again, sometimes I just feel grateful because you can't always control that. And the fact that, I think part of it at NC State is that everyone on this staff on the distance side, and even most of them on the other side, are NC State grads. So the family atmosphere we talk about in recruiting, like, it's not just on the team and it's not just talk. We are like a family here. And so I think that for me, that made it much easier. And so I have so much respect for people who, don't have that kind of situation and still are trying to make it work. And
yeah, that's really beautiful. It's beautiful to think about Elly just like growing up in that world and mom running the show and doing all the things, and the fact that then she runs for NC State. It's like you have this like legacy that you're still making at NC State, but it's just, do you ever think about like 20 years from now or however long when you're retired, what your name will mean at NC State?
Yeah, and maybe not personally so much. I think we talk about we're team oriented for sure, but I like the word program more, because I think like team implies the 7 people that are running this year, right? And so we always talk about, I think our women probably know the history of this program, really well, and maybe a lot more than some people in other programs, because we talk about when you put the uniform on here, like, you are running for the people that you're lining up with, like certainly at that NCAA championships, but we talk about it being more than just that. It's the people that were, 10 years before you or will be 10 years after you. So we do try to build that. So hopefully that does come through, and that will still be a legacy that, people talk about, that when you put this uniform on here, it's for this family and for the program, not just for the people that you're lining up with in that time or that year.
Hey friends, one more quick break here to let you know. Did you know I have training plans available on my website for purchase? I have half marathon and marathon training plans. There's 4 half marathon plans: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And then I have 3 marathon training plans: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. The marathon plans are 18 weeks because they give you a good solid base build at the beginning. So if you don't have 18 weeks, you could easily jump in at week 3 or 4, depending on what your mileage base is at. And then the half marathon plans are 14 weeks. They come with pace charts for goals, paces to be hitting for your workouts if you have a specific goal time for your race, as well as pre and post run exercises I recommend for everyone, and basic strength routines that I recommend for everyone to do. Super passionate about injury prevention over here, and so I think that even the most basic strength routines will help. So you can learn more and check out the products at lindsayheine.com. I also have the capacity to add on maybe two more people to my coaching roster. I'm coaching about 7 people right now. I keep it pretty small. I definitely keep it under 10 people, just because I want to make sure I can give as much attention as possible to the people that I'm working with. If you are looking to run a half marathon or a marathon and you would like for me to help guide you, I'd be happy to do that. You can reach out to me, lindsay@sandyboyproductions.com. We also have another coach, Emma, on our staff here, and she is coaching for the 5K, 10K, and half marathon as well. So if I am full, she's available as well, and she has had some great success working with some wonderful athletes already. So check that out at the website, lindsayheine.com. All that. The training plans, the coaching, all the things. Friends, thanks for being here, and enjoy the rest of my conversation with Laurie. So what does it look like coaching these young women, beyond the running? Because you talk about family a lot. And so, and obviously, like, college age kids, like, that is such a developmental period of their life, like emotionally, spiritually, all the things. So what does your role look like outside of the physical performances?
So many things. So many things. And I think, so I got into coaching because I was so super close to my high school coach, and she was a matron of honor in my wedding. She's Elly's godmother. So I had a female coach in high school, and that I was, really close to. But I think that role is so different. 15-year-olds, it's a lot different than working with 18, 19-year-olds. And I realized that a lot more actually with Elly in the program, that because I knew what she was like at 12, I kept projecting that onto, like, that was still who she was or what she might do. And, she's like, Mom, I've changed. So I think that whole, it is really college that's the time period where people need to learn who the women hear me say this all the time, and they kind of laugh at it. Like, if they say they're finding themselves, they're like, no, coach says you don't find yourself, you make yourself. And so
I love that. I love that so much.
I got to find myself. I'm like, no, this is where you decide who you're going to be and what's going to be important to you. And, letting them do that on their own is tough at times. It's really, I think, the biggest mistake maybe I made as a parent, and a lot of parents make young, is like, doing a lot of things for your kids that they are ready to do for themselves, or, stopping them from failing because you can see it, but, sometimes they have to fail. And that's really hard at this level too, because our job is to win too, and to make people successful. But if you don't let some of that failure come in, they don't learn. And it is amazing how many 18 and 19-year-olds have not really had anything go wrong, and they don't know how to handle it when something does. For some people, they get a C on a chem test and they really do feel like it's the end of the world. And, I think, like, letting people work through that, being there for them, but letting them fail is really something I've had to try to learn to do. But I think people are more successful in life and in running when they can learn to, they have these big failures and then they learn from them and figure out how to do it differently the next time, instead of us just stepping in and doing it for them, which is really hard as a parent.
Oh my gosh. It's so hard.
And hard as a coach too.
Well, and it starts at such a young age as a parent. I mean, your kid's trying to get their shoe on, you're just let me do it, because you want to get to the next thing. And it's so much easier it's like when you tell your kids to clean the playroom and you're just like, oh, I'll just do it myself because it'll be easier and it'll be done right.
And I think that, the same thing happens even here with training or with their academics. And, you see something happening in a class, you're like, oh, this is going to end poorly, but you've got to let them work through it and talk to the professor and tell you, we have all this support and it's awesome. But sometimes it's still so much that people step in and fix things for them. And I feel like when they go on to professional career running, sure, but whatever it is, sometimes you're going to have failure and go from there. And so I think that, that's something we do really work on. And I've tried to work on, like, stepping back and not over coaching in running or anything else. Like, we recruit these really high level athletes. They're good for a reason. Like, it's who they are. Sometimes I feel like people overcoach. We try to, and the thing about distance running, though, and cross country too in particular, there's no time out. Like, you can't call them over to the sideline. So they better know what to do when things aren't going well 10 minutes in. And I think that I really think a mistake I made younger was to, like, try to overcoach and tell them exactly what race plan was going to be from start to finish. Sometimes that it doesn't work that way, and they have to be able to adjust. I mean, at nationals, Caitlin Toohey fell, and we'd had people fall earlier in the year, and luckily I think we'd had a lot of conversations about, don't panic if this happens, don't try to make it up in 400 meters, take 1,000 meters, work with it, but you can't tell them that during the race. And so this whole, being able to step back during practice and everything and let them figure things out for themselves, I think it works out for them to be more successful running, but also, after college and in life too.
Wow, that's really, really important. It's interesting to hear you talk about it because, we talk about developing as athletes, but as you're sharing this, it's like you're talking about your development as a coach over the years.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think everyone should be learning all the time. And so, the training is different than it was, 20 years ago, and so is the way probably that we interact with student athletes. I think, a lot of when I grew up in the 80s in high school, and a lot of it was just like, okay, be coachable. The best way to do that is people tell you exactly what to do and you do exactly what they tell you. And I think there's still, I think there's a lot of good in that. But I think this whole idea that's come around of like letting people learn and figure some of these things out and learn from failures and that kind of thing is, something that maybe wasn't talked about as much, 20 years ago as it is now.
We definitely talk about feelings a lot more now.
That's for sure.
What's it like coaching different athletes? Some athletes that like need a lot more of that. I don't know if hand holding is the right word. And then some athletes that are kind of better off making their own path. There's got to be kids that are doing both of those and then some kids in the middle. And how do you read that as a coach?
Yeah, that's difficult. And also I think just the age differences, like a lot of people, again, the 18-year-olds coming in probably haven't done a lot of that, although some of them have. And then you have 23-year-olds who are basically adults and, it's a lot different. But one of the things we talk about a lot is, the workouts can be very similar, but learning, I just really try to get to know everybody really well and learn what makes people tick because it's different for different people. And years and years ago, Julia Lucas was in the program. She missed the Olympic team by, 0.04 seconds. And she was having trouble at NCAA meets only. She wasn't running well. We brought in a sports psych person that worked really well with her. And he pointed out that she was like crazy at practice, like all over the place. And her teammates loved it. And we got to big meets and she tried to be different. She tried to be more serious. And it wasn't working for her because she was trying to do something, way different at big meets than she was doing every day. And, that was a moment for me where I'm like, wow, like everybody tries to force this certain attitude on race day and but that's not what we're doing at practice. So why would we do it at nationals? Why would we act like everything's different or bigger and make these things bigger than they are? So I think like for me, understanding what makes each person kind of tick and what is the best situation for them in workouts is just something I think that happens as you get to know your student athletes better. And as our staff, that is very important to us. I mean, I think that, the workouts are definitely important. We spend a lot of time on the X's and O's and what exactly the workout should be. But I think I spend a lot of time, almost as much time on what's going to put this person in the best mindset. What kind of workout grouping are we going to do? So people like for cross country this year, like this, they just knew they could run together because we were doing it every day. And that's not what a lot of people were used to, this big group of it, but it worked out to be the best thing for this year and everybody really bought into it. But I think like getting that to happen, doesn't, you have to kind of let it happen, but you have to understand each person and how to get them there. So, again, I think it's just relationship based and getting to know each person and what works really well for them.
Yeah, I heard you mention in an interview after the championships that you all won. Like, we don't need to do anything different today. Like, we need to go do what we know how to do. But I'm sure that the women on the team were still pretty nervous. So what are your calming words as a coach? Like, what do you say to them to get them fired up?
Again, this year, we were really fortunate that was absolutely true. Like the race we had at ACCs, the race we had, and I told them, if you have that race, which we've done over and over again, well, I didn't necessarily say we'll win. I said, if we have that race, we have this kind of gap, what we've been doing, if somehow we do that and get beat, well, then somebody, but this is who we are and it's what we've been doing all year. And so I know Sam Bush has said after had a big breakthrough as our number 5, she said that when I told her, if you can see them, if you can see Kelsey and Caitlin and you're that then we're going to win. And if we're going to do that. So she just was awesome. I mean, that was such a big breakthrough for her. She hadn't run at an NCAA championships before and just had big breakthroughs all fall. And so, I think this was a pretty good group. Yes, definitely they were nervous. They said, some of the interviews they've done, they said they were nervous, but there was a big board right by our tent that was putting up this like emoji game and like trivia game. They were just like playing it, like actually like in the warm up. And they said that they kind of looked at each other and knew that everybody was pretty calm and in the right headspace. But, I wish I could say this is like exactly what we did to get them there. But I think we had, again, a lot of older people on the team with experience at this level who realized, hey, we're in a really good spot. We don't have to do anything different. We just have to do what we've been doing all year and it'll work out.
Yeah, such a good recipe there with all those older leaders on the team. What's it like as a coach to see someone have a breakthroughs like that? I'm sure that you have so much joy when you see that.
It was amazing. And then, I mean, the national for Sam, that was amazing. But also, and Elly Henes is a transfer from Columbia. She'd run very well at Columbia. And, the Ivies, they lost a whole year. They couldn't run the cross country season that everybody else ran because the Ivies didn't compete at all during that time. They didn't compete in the outdoor track season. So she hadn't competed for so long. And, she had finished 70 something or 80th at the last cross country race she ran for Columbia. But to see her be able to do that was awesome too. She and Sam and those big breakthroughs. And then honestly at Boston, 2 weeks later, when Sam Bush ran 8:54 for 3K, I mean, the whole team, and that's what makes me really happy. Like the whole team was so happy for her because she's worked really hard for this. She was actually, when we finished second in early 2021, she was the first alternate. Like she didn't line up, but she was really disappointed to not line up at that NCAA championships. And I was too, because I know where her talent level is, and it just didn't quite get there in time for that. And I think she responded to that. You can respond to things like that a lot of different ways, and we talked about how to respond to that. And her response was, I'm not going to be in this position again. I'm going to be at this level and help us. And next year, since we were second this year, I want to be in a position to line up and help us win. And she did exactly that. And so I think we do talk about that a lot. How do you respond to, you can't control everything that happens, but you can control your response to those things that are happening. And so, her response was to have this major breakthrough, and it just made me so happy to see how happy her teammates were. And Elly, again, there too, in the 5K, it was massive PR, 30-second PR, something like that. And her teammates were just so happy for them. And so that I feel the most happy about that, watching their teammates' reaction.
Okay, I'm just thinking about when I was in high school on cross country team, and we would get, you get knocked down to the 8th runner on the team, so you're not in the competition and things like that. And because I would always waver, sometimes I'd be the 3rd runner. Sometimes I'd have really bad years where I would be 6th, 7th and coming off the bottom. I never really thought about it from the coach's perspective. What is that like as the coach when you have people that are like waffling on and off the teams, or how does that all work? Because I'm sure there's like such an emotional investment in each of these kids.
There is. You want everyone to run well.
Right.
And there's math, and you can line up 7. And so that's tough. We just try to focus. I try to focus and have them focus on, are you getting better? Are you progressing? You can't really control what somebody else is doing. We are fortunate enough to have been really deep the last couple of years too. So we ran different people at regionals than we ran at nationals. And then I think that they really do believe like that's as big a part of winning nationals as if you lined up, because it allowed Hannah Steelman to rest. Hannah's Achilles was bothering her a little bit, and had she had to run 3 races, I don't think she would have had the race at nationals that she had. So somebody else stepping in and running regionals, it was as big a part as us winning, because it allowed Hannah to be ready to go at nationals. And so I think though that only happens when people really care about each other and can see that happening. And I think that, again, I think they all know how much the coaching staff cares and their teammates care. But at the end of the day, you can line up 7 at that race, but we brought everyone that was running well to all the big meets. And so I think it really feeds off each other, and they can see that people get back into that mode, like Sam Bush didn't make, Heather Holt hadn't been there the year before, and they were all lining up and running well. And so our goal, we just really talk about progression, being better this year than you were last year, better this week than you were last week, and hopefully that just working out.
Yeah.
So people in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I imagine it's heartbreaking to be the one that's not on the 7, but you got to think of it as like the family, the team aspect, like you're saying. All right, Laurie, we've got to wrap up here with some end of the podcast questions. now you've just like accomplished probably like the most exciting thing in your coaching career ever. But I always wrap up asking what's something professionally or personally you'd like to do that you haven't done yet.
I mean, I guess professionally, like the team championship was, the main thing. Like I think NC State coaching wise that I wanted to be a part of, but I've never really coached individual at the Olympics, so I think that would be kind of cool. And personally, but it gets really tough as the kids get older to do vacations. So we had this. My grandparents are from Italy and Greece, and we had this whole trip planned that we had to cancel to the pandemic. So hopefully, personally, our family really wants to be able to find a time to be able to do that again together, which would be cool.
What year is your other daughter, Jordan?
She's her sophomore year at App State.
How are you handling empty nesting?
Well, I still don't have much time, but we are doing a little bit of binge watching of TV. My husband and I, we've never done, but we're totally on opposite ends of it. Like if I get into something, like I would watch 10 episodes and not go to bed. And he's like, nope, one episode. It's so frustrating. Like, no, we have to keep watching it. But I'm that way with books and stuff too. So different personalities. It's good because he keeps me in a mode where I still get a decent amount of sleep. Because otherwise I would just like keep going.
What are you binging?
Well, he's done Emily in Paris without me, so I'm behind on that one.
Oh, really?
Yes, because I'm not home as much. And then we never watched Ted Lasso, so we're watching that, which I really like too. Those are the two.
Are you season 1 or season 2 Ted Lasso?
Mid-season 2.
Isn't it the best?
I love it. Yeah.
So good. Okay, what's the best, most recent book you've read?
So it's my daughter gave it to me, actually. And actually, Erica Kemp, who ran for us at BAA, she suggested it too. It's called Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. They're both psych majors, and it's kind of it's a story of a therapist, seeing their own therapist and all that kind of stuff. But it's kind of like a little soap opera woven through it with the people that the therapist sees and her therapist. I'm not done with it, actually. And my daughter said the same thing. She's like, I didn't finish it because I didn't want to. But
oh, really?
To the end of it, but I haven't. But it's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, Erica's been on the podcast, and she suggested that book when she was on
the
the
show. She on the podcast? Yeah, she's. I think she and Elly, because they both had the same major, they'll talk to each other, and so yeah.
It's good. Okay, 2 more questions. Who's someone fun, motivating, or inspiring you'd like to have coffee, tea, or cocktail with?
Fun. Okay, so before the shows we were watching now, it was Game of Thrones. So I think Emilia Clarke. I think she'd be fun.
Okay. And then what is your last message to leave with our audience today?
That's hard. I think people ask. We've talked about this. I think being grateful and being kind are the 2 most important things we can have people do in the program. And both of those can be tough when you're overwhelmed and frustrated and things that happen. But I feel like if you just practice gratitude and you're kind to people, you don't know what everyone's going through. Do those 2 things, it's a lot easier to be successful and have fun. So even when it's hard, I try to focus on those personally and try to have the team focus on that as well.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining the show today. Thank you, Laurie, for coming on the podcast and sharing your story. Go Pack Go. That's becoming familiar to me here in Raleigh. Lots of my neighbors are big NC State fans. Hey, friends, you can check out everything we talked about in the show notes, which are at sandyboyproductions.com. There is a tab for I'll Have Another Podcast there that you can check out. It'll also give you a little pop-up to sign up for our newsletter as well. We'd love to have you join that, where I email you the show notes every single week so that if there's a book or anything we talk about, you won't miss that. You don't have to stop your run and write it down or put it in your notes app. You can just get the newsletter, send it to your email, same day the episode comes out. Pretty cool. Big thanks to Emma for making that happen. I'd love to connect with you on social media. I'm Lindsay Henes 626 on Instagram, Lindsay Henes on Twitter, and we have a great Facebook group for this podcast. I'll have another podcast as well. If you are a parent or someone helping raise kids, I also host a podcast for parents, caregivers, anybody helping raise kids. It's called Why Is Everyone Yelling? Why is everyone yelling? It's a really suitable name for a podcast for people with small kids, is it not? All right, friends. I hope you're having the very best day. Have a great Friday, a wonderful rest of your weekend. And as always, I will see you next Friday.